Hey folks, welcome back to Fresh Produce. I'm Pete from BTI. We've got an exciting one for you today. We've got a great interview with Sacky from Bike Yoke lined up. He's both the founder and engineer of their products. He's got some really interesting insights into what it takes to bring a brand to market in the industry. It's a little bit long, but I think there's so much cool stuff in there. Dig right in. We hope you enjoy. Also, one really cool deal for this episode. Sacky has helped us to give away a Bike Yoke seat post, so please comment down below. And if you're on Instagram, also make sure you tag 3 friends so we can get a lot of people viewing this video, help other people find out about the contest as well. That'll enter you in for the giveaway on the seat post, and in another week, we'll pick a winner and send that seat post out. So hope you enjoy it. It's a great watch, I believe. Dig right in. All right, folks, here it is. We wish that Sacky could come visit us in Santa Fe at our warehouse, but it's a little tough right now. So here we are. We've got a Zoom call set up with him, and we can ask all the important questions. I think this is going to be really interesting because I know a lot of you folks have read his comments on Pink Bike and other message boards before. So we've got the man in person. Let's get right into it. Sacky, welcome. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Hi, Pete. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation. It's an honor, and quite curious what we're going to talk about.
We've got a whole bunch of stuff to cover. You know, you and I actually worked together we have worked together for quite a while, almost 5 years, I think, at this point. But a lot of folks maybe just don't know you as a person aside from your comments so I figured this would be a really cool time that people can see your personality. And why don't you tell us, first of all, what you do at Bike Yoke? Or, it's your company, right? You started the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, basically at Bike Yoke, I'm doing kind of everything, apart from assembling the stuff, basically. So I design the stuff. I do service, so I talk to customers. I'm just part of a team of 15 people now, but when I started it, there was even more stuff that no, let's start again.
You did even more when you started, right? You did basically everything.
Well, I did basically everything. I started Bike Yoke with a good friend of mine. His name is Jackie, who I met in Taiwan. Basically it was only us two back then when we started with the yokes, knowing that the yokes were just the beginning. So we needed something to basically collect money for bigger project, and the yokes sounded or looked like a good idea because we knew those things were wanted for quite a while, or people were looking for it and nobody did it before. So it was a big hit for us, and it helped us gain some money, get some cash to take on the bigger projects, because we wanted to do everything by ourselves. We didn't want any investors or third parties involved. That helped us a lot, getting some money to invest in bigger toolings, because we knew we wanted to do something more bigger, and that was basically the dropper post we already had in mind.
Okay, so you already had that kind of as your future project in your mind. I was just going to ask, knowing that you started with these yokes, what made you then move into working on a dropper post? It seems pretty different from the original yoke.
Quite different, yes. So the yokes, they are a very simple product. It's basically it's very simple idea, and nobody ever did it before. And everybody knows how many specialized bikes are out there. So there is a demand for that. So we knew, okay, we could collect some money with it, and but that was just the beginning of Bike Yoke. For the bigger projects, they come because I was designing for a bicycle brand before. I worked at Bionicon. We did geometry adjustment bikes. I think the only ones at that time who had adjustable fork and shock. So you could level the bike depending on the slope of the terrain. And so I was designing the frames, the forks, and the whole geometry adjustment system there. So I had a little bit of an idea of hydraulics, suspension and stuff.
Yeah, that seems like some important experience on the road toward, these seat posts, right?
Right. I mean, Bike Yoke wouldn't be there if I hadn't been at Bionicon before. Bionicon was like, it was a great time there. It helped me a lot. I spent 2 years living in Taiwan, so I met a lot of suppliers, made a lot of friends there, met all the important guys in the bike industry, and it's an amazing country, to be honest, and kind of became a second home. And yeah, it was a really fun time. So what I wanted to say basically, I think, was that I had some idea of hydraulics, but at the same time, Jackie, who I founded Bike Yoke with, he also worked at another suspension company before. So he also had an idea he designed a lot of droppers already. So we teamed up and we said, hey, let's just start with the yokes, but let's make something bigger, And that's how Bike Yoke basically started. It was really, it's been a ride so far.
I'm sure it has. Well, that leads me right into my next question. Just what's been the hardest part of starting your own component brand? From the outside, I would think like, well, the engineering seems like the hardest part, but I'm sure there's so much more that goes into the whole brand.
Yeah, that's... well, engineering, I know how to engineer stuff. So because that's what I've been doing before Bike Yoke. I think the hardest part was also handle the production, also handle the marketing, spread the word about this stuff, because it's one part. One part is like just design the stuff, produce it, but you have to make people know about your stuff, and I would say it's not easy. I guess there's a lot of cool and nice products out there that nobody knows about, and our benefit was that we came out with the first product we came out with was the yokes, and everybody knew, okay, Specialized. So we could create a name, because just there's so many Specialized bikes out there. And the second product, I believe it was the Triggy. It was at that time one of the first trigger style remotes for dropper posts. There was only one other, I think, before, but it was a standalone remote that you couldn't attach like to SRAM's Matchmaker, this compatibility with other stuff. So
maybe there was some good timing that you hit kind of to catch the market at the right time there.
Right. It was a lot of lucky timing, I would say. And without a lot of luck and coincidence and a little bit of sweat and blood, we wouldn't be there where we are. But I would say it's a big share of where we are now is good timing and also good luck.
Yeah. And of course, a great product that, if people try and then come back to buy a second one, tell their friends about the quality and stuff too. Of course, that's the best way, the easiest way to do marketing, I imagine.
That is, I mean, what we've always tried to do is make something unique. Like, you can make grips, you can make a lot of stuff, buy it and put your name on it and sell it as your own brand. But we always want to make something, at least a little bit of difference. There's like products on the squeezy that we have, the seat post clamp. You can't reinvent a seat post clamp, but we always try, right. We always try to have a little bit of like detail or a little bit of a feature in all of our products that others don't have.
Yeah, that's why I actually had this out. I wanted to talk about the seat post clamp later on, because it is unique. There's so many seat post clamps out there, but this is the only one just like it. So we can get back into that, but it's a pretty cool take on something that every bike has, and basically everyone makes one as well. But in terms of like these new products and as you're developing, can you tell us about how that development cycle goes? Of course, it's going to be different when you make a seat post versus a saddle, but maybe a general idea for those of us that don't have the engineering background, production background.
Well, the good thing about Bike Yoke is that we can make what we want. So if we have an idea, let's say, for example, the Willy, we wrapped old tubes around our seat tubes to...
Here's the Willy. which just to, if people don't know about it, it's a really unique thing. Was that?
Do you have all our products on the table? Like you can just...
Most of them, yeah. I've got most things here because I think this is another like unique thing. It's so simple. It's just a piece of rubber, but it slides over the top of the seat mast on the bike and kind of eliminates the possibility of water getting down into the frame around the seat tube. So it's simple, but just unique little product that there's not a lot of others out there.
In the past, we used to like cut old tire inner tubes, you know, and put them over the post and around the seat tubes to just prevent water from entering the frame. And then we said, hey, there should be something that looks a little bit nicer. So we just did the Willy. And it's have the idea in the products. Like, you know, we say, okay, and it's not something you can actually plan, or at least not for me. It's not like you sit there and you say, okay, we have to make a new product. You just ride your bike, and then at some point you just have an idea, and like you start thinking about something and say, well, why not make it, or why not like, you know, and then you develop an idea, or you think it further, and then you come up with a product. But it's not like you can't sit there and then say, okay, let's brainstorm for like 5 hours for new products. That's not how it works. And so yeah, it's all about having an idea, and then we need to think, is there a market for it? Of course, if we need to have a market. It doesn't make sense to produce something just like to have it, but we need to, at some point, we need to make money with it. And so then it comes down to how much do we want to invest in that stuff, and how big are the chances that we can sell it. And then if we think it's a good product and we think we can sell it, then we just do some prototyping. And prototyping is usually, you can, for example, in the case of let's say in case of the squeezy clamp, at first you make, like, for example, CNC prototypes, full CNC, just to see if the idea works.
So those are going to be more expensive for you to produce, but it's quick and you can get exactly what you want to kind of test it out quickly, right?
Exactly. Like you can make even if you want, you can make a one-off, right? You can produce just one unit, and then you test it and you think it's good, then you need to make another decision and say, okay, do we want to make it forged, like by a forging piece, or do we want to stay with CNC? Because if you produce a lot of quantities, it's usually cheaper to make a forging mold, like to have suppliers make a forging mold, but that's also a lot of invest. I mean, the mold is expensive.
So bigger investment on the front side for a forging mold versus maybe more of like extended cost for a CNC.
And usually, so in this case of the squeezy, so the squeezy, when it's unfinished, it looks like the shape looks similar, but it's on all sides there's more material. Now after the forging, you have to imagine, like, it compresses the material, and so it also makes it stronger. Usually forged parts are stronger than fully CNC parts. And after it's forged, like, we CNC it after, so we just take off the unfinished surfaces to make it, like, as you see it now, really shiny, really nice and detailed finish. And that's a decision you have to make if you want to make it full CNC in the beginning, or if you invest in forging molds. And
so I actually didn't realize that the squeezy was forged and then CNC'd. I assumed it was just CNC'd only.
No, it's forged. It's forged, and then it's CNC'd. Yeah.
And so when you're forging, just for us non-engineers, that's essentially like increasing the density of the metal a little bit, right?
Yeah, basically.
So that's where it's getting slightly stronger and aligning the grain somewhat too. So again, increasing strength. Cool. That's a really interesting tidbit there on a random product. But so continue. I interrupted. Sorry.
So basically, you test the stuff, then you make decisions. How do you produce it? Then obviously, usually when you do samples or testing, you will stay with this supplier for series production. Otherwise, they would get just pissed off if you go to somebody, make the samples, and go to another one to make the series production. So you talk to the supplier, you talk about quantities, you talk about, like, how much is the cost, and then for us, it's what is for us at Bike Yoke. We never go for a product and say, okay, we have a target price. Other companies, they say, okay, it cannot cost more than this. Mm-hmm. We say our goal is always to have like the best or a really nice product. And so they may be more expensive, but just because they are expensive because they cost more, because we see, okay, how much can we produce it, and from how much do we have to sell them? But we don't say there's an upper limit unless it's like really, really too much, but it costs what it costs, and that's why our products may be more expensive than others, but it's just because they are exactly the way we want them.
Yeah, so you come in with more of a performance goal as opposed to a cost goal, and work backwards from that toward the cost.
Yeah, I think Bike Yoke is an engineering or nerd-driven company. Yeah, we are just all stupid, and like we just want the bikes as, we all of us have like basically their dream bikes because we work in this industry, and we are also able to build parts for our own bikes and build stuff we want to build, and we know other people also want that stuff, and so it's engineering driven. It's not driven to, of course, it's we need to make money, but it's
of course it's a business, but you're driven by wanting to ride the best parts that you can make, kind of thing.
Right. It's basically quality and engineering driven company. Not so much cost driven. Of course, we need to check for some products, but there's products that we could make the posts a lot cheaper and they would work exactly the same way, but the finish of the post, the CNC'd head or the lathed finish of the lower tube, all this kind of stuff is small details that make the product more expensive without really making a big difference in performance, but people like it and we like it. And that's why we make things. There's a lot of stuff that we could make cheaper, but we don't want to make it cheaper.
Well, they still add up to like this kind of top end performance, or this, like that lathing on the lower tube, right? Yeah, that lathing on the lower tube really does like keep the seat post from slipping if you're at a low, seat clamp tension. So some of those details, they just add up in certain situations, right? Yeah, cool. Well, I really appreciate that discussion. That's like super interesting to me. So thank you for diving into that a little bit. I thought you were going to talk more about like the CAD engineering, but it seems like there's so many more bigger decisions to be made aside from just creating the CAD drawing or whatever.
The engineering is not the simplest part, but it's just one job. If you know how to design stuff, then it's just okay, I need to draw the stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of more, like, you cannot just go there and CAD a part, because you need to know, okay, is that what I'm drawing there? Is that even possible to use? So you need to talk to the suppliers, know what they're capable of, and also be in correspondence with the suppliers to say, hey, can we make this chamfer there, or can we make this cut there, or what are your tolerances on O-ring seats, all this kind of stuff. So you need to talk with suppliers, and the good thing is that we are part Taiwanese. We have with the team in Taiwan, we produce our own stuff in Taiwan, or we have our own production in Taiwan. So some companies they don't have their own production. We have like Taiwanese people that are Bike Yoke people. They are just as crazy as me, and they know what they are doing. So they can talk to the suppliers in their own language, which is a really big benefit.
Yeah.
There's other companies that they are American, they are German, but they don't have an office, or they don't have a real engineering or supplying, not supplying side, but people that actually really know what they're doing, and people talking to the suppliers in their own language. So that's a big benefit of Bike Yoke. And sorry.
I imagine you can just gather so much more detail and make sure that you're getting across your needs well, and just understanding each other like with precision, which is so important in this creating of a precision part.
Yeah, there's so much stuff that is involved in a product making or in a marketing a product, launching a product in the process. There's so much stuff, and engineering is just a part of it. I mean, as I said before, there's probably a lot of people that have good ideas that are good in engineering, but in the end, you also need to market this product. And
and that ties in so many more aspects, like even the packaging and how it's going to sit on a store shelf.
There's so much stuff, and that was also one of the interesting things and the challenges for me, because I was an engineer. I'm an engineer, but now I know everything. You have to learn what is VAT. You have to learn, how to deal with customs. All this kind of stuff that you need to learn to sell a product. It's not just it's a lot of stuff, and then marketing the product is really hard, because getting the word out about the stuff. For us, it was first we had the yokes. That was already a big benefit for us, because people understood what we were doing. So the name Bike Yoke was already there, and then of course we had a big hit with the Revive, because everybody at that time knew this very specific problem of this one specific post out there.
Right.
Everybody, I guess, knows what I'm talking about. And we had a very, very simple solution for that. Like, you could explain it with a video and people would immediately understand.
Yeah.
That was something very fortunate and lucky for us, that we had this idea for the Revive at a time where everybody knew about this issue.
Yeah, exactly. It was an issue that was, such a widespread issue, and such a, expensive and time expensive fix for it as well, for that other post issue. But these ones just flip a switch, it's fixed, it's good to go.
Yeah. And that helped us a lot. Of course we had to have the idea, but the fact that everybody knew this problem helped us a lot get into the market, because they said, wow, that's so cool and so simple. So that was really lucky for us. So that was one of the points that I said, okay, you need to have luck, otherwise Bike Yoke wouldn't be there where we are.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff involved in product launching, product development, product making, and I think we could talk for.
You're right. Okay, so another thing that I think is really unique about Bike Yoke is just, I mentioned it earlier, but how engaged you are with the community. Whether that's, I think early on you had an MTBR post that really talked about all the issues that might be coming up with your post and some fixes to get around them, and you just interacted with your customers so much. I think that was really unique. So I guess my question is, was that like a conscious business decision? Did you go in saying, I want to be uniquely connected, or was it just how you did it, because you thought it just happened, I guess?
Well, when I was working at Bionicon before, I also did some forum works on German forums. And I thought it was interesting. It was fun and interesting, because it gives you a lot of feedback from customers too.
Oh, yeah.
You get real world experience, not only good experience, also bad experience, but which is always helpful, to develop, to re-engineer, to make your product better, because not everything goes right, obviously. So, and you need to learn from your mistakes. And forums you have to be careful with forums. I am I am very straightforward. So not everybody gets really along with how I am, but I'm always fair, That what we do, as I would say the boss of founder of Bike Yoke, I do spend a lot of time in forums and replying to emails, customer service stuff. I don't think a lot of founders of companies do it. So it's something that I do because it's very helpful for me, because I get direct feedback. I think customers do appreciate it. Some appreciate it, some don't even know, but that's okay. But some some of them, they just like it if they really get reply from, I don't know how do you call a CEO, how would you call a CEO?
Yeah.
Of a company, and or even if they get just replied, at all within a couple of days, because that's also not something you should take for granted these days.
True,
and so it is it's time consuming, it's fun, it can be frustrating, but it's part of my job, and I want to keep doing that because I think it's important, and I think it's cool for customers too.
I think it's really cool. I mean, that's why I wanted to bring this up, because I just think it's so unique and sets you apart, and I think it's both fun to see you doing it from the outside, but also I think gives customers like a really unique opportunity to interact with you that most other companies, they just would not get that option. So pretty cool, and I thank you for it, and I think it's sets the company apart a little bit. But also, like you said, I'm sure you get some really important feedback from it, as frustrating as that might be sometimes.
Yeah, and it shows customers that you really care and that you really want to get involved with them, and we also get a lot of ideas, from customers too. Sometimes they have ideas and we think, oh, why didn't we think about that?
Exactly.
Why didn't we think of that? And so, yeah, I just said that most of the time I might know more about products than the others, but some of them are smart guys and they have good ideas. So it's really helpful for us too.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Let's see. So speaking of the actual product, you just launched the new Revive 2.0 in the 213 by 34.9 size. So this specific build has been in the smaller sizes for a little while, a few months at least. But this new one, what's unique about that 34.9 post?
Unique. So I would say, well, we had the Revive Max, the 34.9 in shorter travels before, like 125, 160, 185. But more and more frame makers are leaning towards the bigger seat tubes, 34.9.
Right, Specialized is the big one, but I know there's a bunch more of that.
Big one, right? Yeah. And really happy to we are OE supplier for Specialized since this year, which makes us really, really proud. Yeah, and cool. Obviously they helped us a lot, to produce higher or bigger quantities of those posts. So finally we were able to make a longer version of this post, because it's not easy for us to always make as many drops or as long drops as we want, because customers, they are asking for, can you not make more, or can you make a 175? Because the 185 is a little bit too long, the 160 is a little bit too short. So yes, of course, we would like to have like 20 or 30 different travels, but it's simply not possible. Every SKU is like a mess, or it's
comes back to that investment point you were talking about earlier. You have to invest in the castings and all this different tooling and stuff to make each size, right?
Right. It's like 4 sizes means like you have, of certain parts, you have like 4 times more and then you have 2 diameters and all this kind of stuff. So it bloats your warehouse,
Right.
And so we have to make a decision. What do we want to offer as a travel? And obviously the 213 came out last year as a standard Revive, and with 30.9 and 31.6. So we knew, okay, it will be cool to have the Max 34.9 version also in 213, but the quantities, like there's not so many frame makers out there yet that support this seat post diameter. So,
right.
And we do need still to make money at some point with every product. So in this case, Specialized helped us, up the quantities and allowed us to open new toolings for this 2.0 version, which is now also featuring the, if you can show it, the head is, or basically the whole upper tube is one piece. It's 3D forged and then CNC'd.
So in the past versions, these top heads were actually like bonded onto the upper tube, and now it's all one piece. And you can see the CNC work on the top, but then smooth too right below. So.
Right, and they still are. The shorter versions still are bonded, and the 213 is one piece. And the tooling for this upper tube, for the, I call it stanchion, is incredibly expensive. Right. And also the longer you make the tubes, because you have to imagine the outside of this tube, it has to be polished, and you have the production of a two-piece tube is much simpler because you have a tube that you can easily polish, because you don't have it just
can just spin without the head being in the way at one end or having attachment around the head.
Yeah, you have like if you I don't know how to say, what is the English term for that, but for your wheels on the car, you need to put weights on there so that they run evenly. You have to true them, right? Or to
balance of the wheels, right?
You have to balance them, and there's a very, very big imbalance on the head. So if you want to polish a one-piece tube, you have a very big imbalance, and you have to clamp this tube at some point and somewhere, because you need to polish the outside, and that obviously is much easier if you just have a round tube without the head bonded and bonded later. So it's a big task to get this done, like in a one piece. So it's really expensive, but that's something we needed for the 213, because it makes the whole thing stiffer, it makes it more strong, and you could also, we can influence the inner shape of the tube, because it comes out always the same as this one. But you screw something, if you thread the head into the stanchion, you never know where the head stops. The head always stops at every pole, every stanchion, and every head, they stop at a different point. So the inside of the stanchion needs to be centered. It needs to be round, it needs to be centered. And for this version, for example, we could use the inside, not centered, like oval shape or whatever, because we can define the position exactly, which you can't do if you bond it after machining.
Right.
And that's some really interesting detail. I thank you for sharing that with us. The other kind of unique part about all the Max Posts, not just this 2.0, is that the upper tube is wider, or matching the bigger diameter than.
That's basically why we did the Max version in the first place. There's a couple of other droppers out there that feature a 34.9 lower tube, but they don't also take care of upping the size of the upper tube. They just use the same upper tube as they use for the smaller versions, which just doesn't make sense. Then I could also just use the only thing different for many of the other posts or for the other manufacturers is just the lower tube.
Right.
And they use the same cartridge unit or upper tube, and we make a whole new upper unit and size up the diameter of the upper stanchion.
I did want to touch quickly on the Divine SL that you just launched in the new 100 and 125 mil lengths. So is this the same basic construction as the original Design SL, just extended out a little bit?
Yeah, it basically is. The Divine SL, is a post that is made for cross-country racing, purely cross-country racing, basically. It was supposed to be, or it is supposed to be, a very lightweight post with not too much travel, because when we designed this post, or when we started designing this post, we talked to a lot of World Cup racers and asked them, how much travel would you like? And most of them said 60 is enough, 80 maybe. So we decided, okay, let's make the post 80 millimeter of travel. But if you think about normal droppers, you always want to keep normal droppers, for us as a trail rider or enduro rider, you always want to have the post as short as possible, because you want to ride as much travel as possible.
Right.
So the overall length of the post should be maximum short. And for the Divine SL, it's exactly the opposite. You don't want a lot of travel. So we said, okay, the travel is 80, but we want the post long, because you need the extension, right? You need to have it stick out of the frame so you get your saddle height.
Right.
And
that's where you get all that extra tube down here that you could cut off if you need, but you leave it on to allow more saddle extension for a high ride height. Right.
Right. This post is 400 millimeters, like the 80 millimeter drop is 400 millimeters long, same as back in the days a standard rigid post. They used to be 400 millimeters. And if you don't need the full length, you can cut the tube, because it's hollow. Like I don't know if you can show it.
Yeah, so it's hollow right in here, so it can be cut about this much.
Yeah, about 100 millimeters and 10 centimeters. You can cut it like over the minimum insert mark.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you don't need the extra length, you can cut it down, save some more weight. And so the idea of the SL was to have not as short as possible, but no, we defined the travel by 80 millimeters. And then we said, okay, we need it long.
Yeah.
That's what you don't have with a Revive or a 125 dropper. You know, most of I would say most of the cross country riders, they couldn't even use a 125 standard dropper because it's just simply too short. And that was the idea behind the Divine SL, to make a short travel dropper, but longer than droppers with actually more drop.
Yeah. So again, it does. And I think it's just like a unique look at this part of the market and those needs for a specific subset of people. Pretty cool that you thought about it in that direction. Well, I just quickly wanted to talk about a couple of the other unique products. You mentioned a whole bunch of times where the brand started with the Yokes. If our viewers hadn't heard about these before, they allow specialized bikes to run non-OE shocks. Essentially, you could run any shock that fits a standard eyelet once you put that on. So this was kind of the original Bike Yoke product. And I think another unique problem solver is the mode fixer. So, there's not a ton of canyon bikes in the US, but there are more and more now. And this is, the idea is to same with the Yokes, but to extend the life of older bikes that might have worn parts that you can't replace. Can you tell us more about the mode fixer a little bit?
Oh, also long story. So the Canyon Strive is a bike that also has a geometry adjustment. So it has a little gas spring, looks like a small shock. It's a gas spring that can extend basically your rear, yeah. So on a full suspension bike, you have a shock, and this small gas spring is a connection between the linkage and the rocker where your shock attaches to. So basically the small gas spring changes or extends your rear triangle. So you get so it extends to the rear triangle. So you get a better uphill position. Yeah.
Steeper seat tube, steeper seat angle in the climb position, and then opposite in the descending.
Raises the BB a little bit. And the problem is that those springs, they failed, and they failed a lot. Actually that idea comes from forums of the mode fixer, because if I remember correctly, because I was talking to an Italian guy and he was asking if we couldn't make a yoke for his Strive, because he's on his sixth shapeshifter. The name of this gas spring is shapeshifter.
Right.
And so at first I was like, maybe. But then I thought, hey, that's actually a good idea, because then I was looking up more in forums, and I found out that there's really a big issue on those gas springs. So I said, okay, why not get rid of the gas spring and replace it or exchange it with a rigid part, which is the mode fixer. That's why it's called mode fixer instead of shapeshifter.
Exactly.
And so it just replaces, it has the same dimensions as the gas spring, like lengthwise. So it doesn't change anything on the geometry. For the Canyon, you have two geometry positions. You have a downhill position and the cross country position.
Right.
And this one, the Mode Fixer Pro, the one you have, you can set those arms that you see. You can set it in two positions. One is the standard downhill position.
Yeah, so downhill and TR trail for the other one. So basically it's giving you the two options, but not at the press of a button. Now you just adjust with bolts.
Right, you need to decide what you want to have, and the TR, the trail position, is a position between the original DH downhill position and the cross country position. So it's somewhere in between, and the DH position mimics exactly the original downhill geometry of the bike.
Okay,
so this
cool.
is the Mode Fixer Pro, and the other one is the Mode Fixer DH, which only has one option. You can adjust it, and it's a little bit lighter, and yeah, but it does the same. It just does away with the gas spring that kept like failing over and over.
Yeah.
So it seems like so many of these problems you just kind of saw, an issue, or so many of these products you saw a problem or an issue out in the industry, and then wanted to create some product to fix that, essentially.
So
that's part of our job, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great philosophy to have behind the company, and we just really thank you for all this insight into your thinking and the whole story and strategy behind it. So thank you so much, Saki. Is there anything else you want to throw in before we kind of wrap this up?
All the best, stay healthy, and yeah.
Well, cool, man. Thank you so much for your time and just giving us so much deep dive into your thinking and the starts of Bike Yoke. So we really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you again soon, Saki. I'm sure you'll be checking out the comments on our video when we get this thing published. And
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thanks folks for watching. Don't forget to get yourself entered for that Bike Yoke seat post giveaway. If you're on Instagram, comment down below and tag 3 friends. And if you're watching this on YouTube, just comment down below. We will pick a winner at the end of the week and ship that seat post out. Hope you enjoyed it.